And you're live.
Good morning. Welcome to the Affordable Housing Advisory Board meeting on August 8th at 9:03. We got a little bit of a late start this morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask our clerk to do a roll call, as this is a virtual meeting. Virtual hybrid meeting, sorry.
Commissioner Overman?
Here, we can just barely hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay,
go ahead.
perfect. Rosenwasser?
Present.
Myers?
Here.
Mathis? Abel?
Here.
Powell? Goods?
Here.
Karen Jackson Sims?
Present.
Combs? Sarah
Here.
Combs? Perfect. David Hollis? Dr. Gordon? And Adewapo?
Here.
Perfect. For county staff, we have Cheryl Howell
Here.
and Nancy Takamori.
Here.
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. With that, I'd like to ask those that are in the room and those virtually to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, with that, we've heard roll call. Basically, we've gone through the process of introducing everyone that is currently in the meeting. Do we have anyone that signed up for public comment for this morning, whether that be in person or actually all of our public comment at these meetings are virtual attendees? Do we have anyone that signed up for virtual participation this morning?
Yes, and she is present.
Okay. Physically present or online?
She is physically present.
Okay.
Good morning, Connie Burton, resident, Hillsborough County. The reason I'm here this morning is because, first of all, I want to thank the board, followed by thanking the commission, the county commission, of the work that they have done around the issue of housing in passing the tenant right bill and other things that you're doing. But I really want to call upon this council, as you're quite often hearing about the urgency of the hour. The city, along with the county commission, passed a resolution almost 2 years ago declaring that race and racism, not only was it a mental health crisis, but the city went as far as saying that it was aware of the ongoing impact that racism and slavery had caused against the people. As we move inside of our communities, talking to people, we see the ongoing effects of that. We see, based on the limitation and doing things outside of the box, being creative, is leading to this ongoing issue of racism as it relates to housing, as it relates to being able to qualify based on income. The Fair Housing Act was written for a specific purpose, and that was to guarantee that those that was inside the working class would not have those barriers. Landlords, developers, corporations have found ways now to include rent, credit, criminal history, and on, that is preventing many of our people to deal with this ongoing trauma. I am calling on this board to look within itself, lead the way. The city is incapable of doing it, finding creative means to bring about a housing solution, that if it don't include the big glossy development, that we look at some of the small untraditional lots that can be used for accessory dwelling, duplexes, we are beyond a crisis. And so while many, many people might be impacted by it, I want to again call to your attention that this Board of County Commission has started the discussion about racism and the impact that it is having, but we need more than talk. We need more than the passing of a resolution. Moving forward, going into 2023, we're hoping that we can see actual models where people will be able to move in, not only just reading documents that the county is working toward eliminating some of the crises, but people would actually have keys to dwelling. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burton, and I appreciate your advocacy as well. Do we have anyone else that signed up to speak this morning?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I will close the section on public hearing, on public comments. And do we have a physical quorum in order to approve the minutes of June 13th, 2022?
We do.
We do. Okay, that's excellent. I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval, Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers.
Second, Goods.
And we have a motion by Commissioner Myers, a second by Councilman Goods. If the clerk will call a roll call vote, please.
Rosenwasser,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Mathis, Abel,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Karen Jackson Sims,
Yes.
Dr. Gordon, and Adawapo.
Yes.
And Ms. Mathis, you are here.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And excellent. Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Rosenwasser, you'll need to turn your mic on when you vote. I did ever so slightly hear yes, but for our court reporter that's online, you'll need to make sure that you speak up or turn your
I apologize. I will do so.
No worries. No worries. Just let you know you're a little muted there, so it's a little hard to hear you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the chair's report following HUD property update, as well as the various different things that we are working on within the county. I'll start with the HUD properties report. For the last several months, my office, in wearing multiple hats, not only as the commissioner for the Board of County Commission, but also working within the area of affordable housing, have been working with some of the parties that are involved in overseeing our HUD properties. Those are properties that are privately owned, that are contracted by the Tampa Housing, and they are actually out of Jacksonville. The HUD office contracts with the local North Tampa Housing Corporation that actually oversees those properties that are largely populated with individuals that have housing vouchers or eligible for affordable HUD housing. As you may have seen on the news, there's been significant problems at Silver Oaks and a variety of other properties. So we worked very hard with all of the stakeholders. That is, ironically, was the Department of Business and Professional Regulation that oversees the licenses associated with multifamily housing over 4 units. We worked with the City of Tampa's code enforcement, the county's code enforcement, with the North Tampa Housing Coalition, with HUD, representatives of HUD out of Jacksonville, as well as several other community stakeholders, to identify the problems associated with HUD-related managed properties that were failing in what's called their REACT score. That's a scoring process that HUD uses for inspecting properties to determine whether or not they are satisfactorily able to meet safe housing guidelines and fair housing guidelines. Silver Oaks was inspected in June of 2021, or shortly after that, and found to be at 68, which anything over 60 is considered acceptable, although that number is really low and acceptable is relative. But when it was recently inspected once again this spring, it found that had fallen from 68 to 57C, which would indicate that there is indications of unsafe circumstances. So we brought the team together and really identified several things. One, the Department of Business and Professional Regulation that oversees multifamily housing, hotels, restaurants, Airbnbs, short-term and longer-term, or transitional and non-transitional housing when it's 4 units or more, does have an exclusion associated with HUD managed or owned properties. That was not clearly understood at one point in time. And the city of Tampa had discerned that it was not necessarily their responsibility to oversee those properties that were regulated and overseen by DBPR. As it turns out, one, HUD properties are excluded from the licensing process that DBPR provides. And DPPR's process for licensing facilities has the initial application that includes making sure that if they have balconies on multi-story buildings, that those are sufficiently inspected and for safety. They also will inspect in the event that there's a problem or a report, but they also are really concerned more with fire safety. Fire safety has to be done as well as part of their application process. They're a licensing board. As it turns out, for the Department of Business and Professional Regulations responsibilities, for them to enforce local codes all across the state is not practical. And so we worked with the city of Tampa, and the city of Tampa then did discuss what their roles and responsibilities were. And given that HUD properties specifically are exempt from DPPR's licensing, they do fall under the city of Tampa as well as Hillsborough County's code enforcement. When residents are actually finding themselves with a property manager's may or may not be responding to work orders in order to address maintenance issues or safety issues or health and hazard issues, their code is permitted to actually inspect. One of the reasons that is critically important is because code actually holds the owner of the property accountable. They may work with the property manager in order to address it, but at the end of the day, if repairs or safe housing is found to violate our local codes, whether that be the city of Tampa's or Hillsborough County's, the owner of the building will be cited and have to actually respond like any other homeowner or property owner in both of those localities. So the process of untangling this spaghetti of who's on first and the siloing associated with the responsibilities has resulted in a couple of things. Now we do have the ability for code to actually respond when a resident finds themselves without having the proper response from a property manager. Two, North Tampa Housing, who oversees the contracts of property managers, is looking very carefully at these properties in order to ensure that the property manager is responding, is not retaliating, is actually working with the owners as well as the residents in order to ensure that their safe housing opportunities and work orders are completed. And then three, we have a situation with non-HUD properties where code enforcement can actually schedule appointments to look at properties when people have complained. To give you an idea of why this is critically important, rats and rodents, for example, is a code violation. And when a property owner has not responded, and that seems to be a real problem, it's inherently and critically important that the property manager, as well as the owner, respond in order to ensure safety of the residents that live within a building in order to address that issue. We are still waiting for an understanding on how we can address some of the things that we've found on the news that have to do with mold. Um, Mold is a hazard within an enclosed environment. Unlike in a hotel, whereas if you move into a hotel room or an Airbnb, you go into there, and if there's a mold, you just go somewhere else. But that is not the case when you're living in an apartment because there's really nowhere else to go given the limited inventory that we have within Hillsborough County. So responding to that is critically important. I know Ms. Takamori is looking into it. Our code enforcement is reporting to me on Wednesday what they've found in the county when it comes to mold and what might be the best recommendation for addressing that. But there is no check the box on the REAC form for HUD related properties that would indicate that there's mold present or it needs to be handled in my opinion, the most appropriate way. For example, we have within the state of Florida a process where a person has a certification and a license in order to inspect for mold. So a certified mold remediator, a certified mold inspector is appropriate to hire when a resident in any facility makes a report that there's mold in their apartment or a home that they're renting. Two, there is such a thing as a license for mold remediation. And when mold is found by an inspector, it would seem appropriate, although it's not required by law, that a certified mold remediator address the mold that's found and when it's found according to the inspector. And that way it can be actually re-inspected and confirm that the mold has been properly addressed in an apartment. What we have seen in our area, however, is a way of addressing it, which is, splash the wall with bleach, paint it over. And that does not, in fact, actually address black mold in a community or in a region like ours, where humidity plays a very large part and where having air conditionings that may or may not work appropriately but aren't required by law, it could potentially create a mold situation that's unsafe for people with compromised immune system, respiratory problems, asthma or other health conditions that would be aggravated by mold. So we're still working on addressing that particular issue. I'm working with Congresswoman Castor's office as well as our local and state legislators in order to address how we might bring up the issue since there's no national standard on how to address mold in a residential unit. But that being said, the good news is everyone seems to be moving in a better place in order to ensure that people that are renting an apartment have the appropriate protections to offer them safe housing. It's not an easy task, but we're getting there. And it became really important when we have in Hillsborough County, in the city of Tampa, Temple Terrace, and Plant City, such a lack of inventory when it comes to available apartments to rent at this point. And clearly, we have an affordability problem. This week, or 2 weeks ago, actually, I attended a conference that heard from an economist that looked at our area and found that currently rents are on average 39% or more of the average median income for Hillsborough County. For those in the low to moderate income, clearly that's a problem. And so we do have a situation where additional units might reduce some of the pressure on rent, but we did address that this week as best we could with the Hillsborough County Board of County Commission approving a modification to our tenant bill of rights to include notice. And while I have Ms. Takamori present, I would like to ask her to do a short update on what those changes were, and then how we go about, and we can then discuss how we go about making sure that our residents, landlords and tenants all are very aware of these updated changes that go into effect shortly. Ms. Takamori, are you available to help with that?
Yes, Commissioner, I'm here. So the ordinance that the Board of County Commissioners approved last week does two basic things. First, it addresses the required notice for termination of residential leases where there's no specific duration in the lease. So if you have a tenancy where your rent is payable on a monthly basis, what the ordinance does is it changes the required minimum notice period that's in the statute from 15 days to now under our ordinance it's 30 days. And then if you have a tenancy, residential tenancy where the rent is payable on longer periods than 30 days, you must give 30-day notice, and that applies, 60-day notice, and that applies to both landlords and tenants. So 60 days notice before terminating. And so the other thing that our modification to the Tenants' Bill of Rights did is it required notice of rental increases of more than 5%. The landlord would need to give a 60-day notice.
Excellent, thank you. And that includes both rents based on the Commissioner Smith's amendment, rents and any increases associated with fees, when it comes to, like pet fees or other common fees or the variety of fees that seem to have popped up lately. So those fees and those increases would also require notice for someone that is more than month to month, in terms of a lease. But if they have a lease, if they're month to month, they have 30 days notice, and if they have a lease that's close to expiring, it's the 60 days. Is that correct?
Well, it's the 60 days notice for the rental increases of more than 5% where there is a lease for a specific duration.
Okay, and it's 60 days for notice of non-renewal as well?
It's 60 days for notice of non-renewal when your rent is payable in increments longer than 30 days. So if you pay quarterly or even annually, the notice of non-renewal needs to be at least 60 days.
So if you have a year's lease and it's coming due in, say, 90 days, but you pay on a month-to-month basis, what does that mean?
So I would say in that instance, that is a lease for a specific duration. So in that case, the part of our ordinance that would kick in is that if the landlord proposes to raise the rent by more than 5%, you would need to give the 60-day notice.
Excellent. That's what I needed, a little bit of clarification there. Thank you very much. So the good news is it gives folks a little more time. I met with the United Way this last week to really talk to them about their home stabilization program. The county has a home stabilization program that actually addresses those that have gotten notice or not much notice, in order to allow them to have an opportunity to relocate or to negotiate with the landlord the rental terms in order to avoid having an eviction be filed, or if an eviction has been filed, where legal support with Bay Area Legal is made available. There are a variety of organizations that do provide that information or those services. The county provides it directly. United Way has the service as well. UACDC of the University CDC, as well as the CDC of Tampa, all have resources available for residents to assist them in negotiating with their landlord in order to avoid an eviction and to assist in home stabilization. All of those organizations, as well as a few others, are able to assist our residents when they are facing a transition. But it does having a little more time to be able to locate a place is very, very helpful, given the lack of supply that we have in Hillsborough County, as well as the city of Tampa. So we're making some progress. I did ask the board to consider as part of our budgetary flag list process for additional resources for creating units um, that would not necessarily go to our Hope Trust, for example, would actually go towards facilitating housing units, whether that be for workforce housing um, or affordable housing, in order to help facilitate the creation of units as quickly as possible. That unfortunately did not pass. Part of the board's decision to invest in affordable housing units. Um, but we were able to address, and I will be bringing back to the board as part of the flag list process, organizations that help address housing challenges as part of my commitment to the community. So with that, I will move on to, unless there's
Madam
any
Chair, Madam
questions.
Chair,
Councilman Good, you recognize.
let me thank the citizens of Hillsborough County and Tampa for bringing some of these issues to us. Uh, we, as a city and county, we dropped the ball on these situations with these housing units that are having problems with the maintenance. Uh, we interpret the law wrong. And I'm glad that the secretary was able to call each of the councilmen to tell us that what the law states. So I have to apologize to the residents that our people didn't do their job in interpreting the law correctly. And now we know what the law is and that we can go in and do what we need to do for the residents of Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa. As you know, we tried to pass an ordinance to go on the ballot. That failed in the city of Tampa, unfortunately. Uh, but I will say this: we can talk to we're blue in the face about we need more housing, but like I tell my council and your commission, when are we going to look at how we're going to do it to bring the stock in? We're talking, but we have to come up with a creative idea with these developers, with our lands, to start building affordable housing. We talk about workforce. I don't know what that means. I think most people don't really know what it means. We're interpreting one thing, but we have to look at the affordability of people because people do not have the money in their pay from getting paid to be able to pay these astronomical prices. So I'm just looking for some answers. Uh, I think everyone's looking for it, but we have to just find out a solution and just do it. So those are my comments, but I thank you for giving everyone a rationale and some explanation about what is going on.
Understood. Thank you, Councilman Goods. I appreciate that. Does anyone else have any comments before we move on to the director's report?
Yes, Commissioner. There are a number of things, and you and I have spoken about Silver Oaks, and I've made some calls to, I believe his name is Scott. I can't remember his last name. Was it Streeter, who is involved with the contract for affordable housing management? I've got 45 years plus experience in the affordable housing market. And as you said, there are numbers of problems related to the management of affordable housing. The mold remediation of simply putting lipstick on a pig and putting bleach on the wall and painting it is not acceptable. There's a national standard that is acceptable, and that is removing all wet or stained drywall plus 18 inches past that, and using dehumidifiers or air blowers to let the wood behind that dry out, and then replacing all of the drywall. That is what my company does, and it solves the problem. The only time we have a problem is when that wall that is affected is between two units that are occupied by different residents, and then you have to treat one side before you can treat the other for security purposes. But there are many, many issues. Typically, the, those in the lower economic strata don't run their air conditioning during the day. They come home and they leave the windows open, and they come home and turn it on and expect an immediate change in the temperature and the humidity in the room, and that doesn't work. People need to leave their air conditioning on to at least 78 degrees, and it actually saves money on the electric bill because it's just a slow run during the entire day as opposed to a massive run all night long. Units are being built to the point where they are enveloped completely. There's no airflow at all through units, and that increases the opportunity for all types of mold to grow. So I think part of it is an education that needs to be shared. Part of it is a remediation, rules that must be followed. And I know that I've taken over many, many communities that are absolutely deplorable, and worked with, only taking them over if owners agree to provide the funds to correct the issues. I think that is what needs to be done, and it needs to be done quickly, because even the notice periods that were Ms. Takamori addressed before, when there's a 40,000 unit shortage of affordable housing units, 30 days doesn't allow a family or an individual time to identify a new apartment home. So we've got to open it up to resources. I attended a seminar quite a while ago at the University of Michigan, and they raised the point that, and it's become more of a relevant point, is that counties and cities and state governments have bond issues that they seek financing for, relative to major long-term projects, bridges, highways, sewage, drainage pipes. The list is long, and you all know what they are. In my opinion, the housing crisis, the affordable housing crisis, is right up there, if not at the top of, because it affects human beings and that quality of life, to address. Is there a way for the county to do work with bonding agencies or lenders and come up with a program that provides landlords and/or governments the ability to build affordable housing at lower interest rates that would include a requirement that when that apartment community sells, that loan be paid back in full, so those funds can then be used for other new construction, assuming land can be found and the other types of things can be done.
Thank you for your question. I have a feeling we're going to hear some of that from Ms. Howell when she goes through her reports on the many things that we are working on. But there are a variety of things that have been rolled out in the last year, for different creative ways to actually create housing. And actually just a couple weeks ago, we got additional information from the feds on additional affordable housing efforts that are available. But with that, I did want to bring to your attention, Mr. Rosenwasser, that Scott Stromer is our person that we were referred to for participating with the county on potential property management. I failed to mention earlier that HUD has terminated the property management company at Silver Oaks, although they do manage other properties in the area, and we're still working on those properties, and brought in a new company who is in the process of meeting out the residents and assessing each of the apartments, and is due to report back to our office as well as Congressman Castor's office on August 15th. They're the results of an updated REAC inspection or inspection process in order to address the conditions at that location. So that becomes very important when it comes to those individuals that have limited or nowhere else to go. But we will have to address what the findings are and how we solve that problem without displacing the almost 200 families that live at that location. So there's good work being done. And I trust that our property managers are going to be able to manage their properties in such a way that people can stay in their homes given the limited resources that are out there. But now they do have the responsibility, and tenants do too, of providing enough notice when non-renewal becomes an issue, or if rent's going to increase and fees are going to increase over 5%. So thank you very much for your comments. It is important that we partner with our affordable housing partners, whether they be existing properties that are managed by a property management company, whether it's small landlords. It's incredibly important that we recognize that that you have the ability to live, and you should have, based on our fair housing laws, you should have the ability to have a place to live that is safe and is supposed to be in good working order. That the tenants have to keep it clean, just as the landlord has to keep it repaired. But there are certain requirements regarding clean and safe property by maintaining the major elements of a building to make sure that there's not a hazard in that level. So we're continuing to work on that. County has not pursued at this point declaring a housing emergency. That would have to go to the voters. It would only be in place for a year. And as we mentioned in previous meetings, that given the state statute, it'd be incredibly difficult. And I still have questions on whether or not, if we were to declare one, whether or not we would have, whether we'd be challenged by the governor and as well as the legislature on the legality of it, even if it were legal. So it would be challenging at this point. So we're doing the things that we can do, which is work on additional units and creating greater opportunities for additional housing units in areas that make sense. And with that, I'll stop my report and ask Ms. Howell and recognize you for the director's report.
Great. Thank you so much, Commissioner. So it's good to be here. Thank you. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your day. I want to address a couple of things before I get into my report. I was hoping to be able to bring Ms. CJ Reynolds on this morning to talk about some resiliency issues and additional funding that's available. Unfortunately, she's not able to come on this morning. She's over in Italy right now. So I'm hoping to have her here next month. But in terms of housing bonds, please note that we currently have housing bonds. Our Housing Finance Authority currently does multifamily and mortgage revenue bonds as well. But in particular to Mr. Rosenwasser, I think he was referencing a type of social housing bond, not necessarily the multifamily housing bonds or the single mortgage revenue bonds that we currently have. But we currently have a set of bonds that we use for the creation and preservation of affordable housing here in Hillsborough County. Typically, our multifamily revenue bonds are oversubscribed. Typically, unless we get some cancellations or we run into kind of different markets, such as we are now, with interest rates spiking, with the cost of labor spiking, with the cost of material spiking. And so it's been hard to get some of those projects across the finish line, but we currently do have housing bonds that we use. But I want to talk about what's being done in the affordable housing arena over the past year. Just a tremendous amount of effort has been demonstrated by all the staff across the board. So not just the affordable housing team, but our procurement team, our county attorney's office, and notwithstanding all of the support and efforts from the affordable housing team. Our real estate department, and all of the internal departments that we interface with, but not forgetting our external partners as well. And so I want to say we are more aware than ever in terms of who owns housing, who owns the housing development. I mean, it matters more than ever. So, we're seeing the outcry from people where their rents have been increased $600, $800, $1,200 in some cases. But when we look at our affordable housing developers and our nonprofit and for-profit partners across the board, those are the people that we reach out to when we're dealing with our most difficult cases. And so with that, I want to say thank you for everything that you do. We know that we're not doing enough to meet the demands that's going on in the community right now, but that won't discourage us from continuing to forge forward and to do everything that's within our power to create additional units and to preserve units as well. And so we have moved forward with the direction of this AHAB board and the direction of the Board of County Commissioners with the Community Land Trust. And so we talked about that a little bit in terms of formation. And so right now the attorneys are doing the last changes to the documents to submit to the Internal Revenue Services for the formalized development of the Community Land Trust. As it states now, there's going to be a hybrid effort in building out this land trust. And so the initial position for the Community Land Trust Manager will be housed in the Affordable Housing Department. And so we are looking for that position to start around October, anywhere around October or November. So I'm finalizing the job description, hoping to be able to get someone on board pretty soon. Also, I want to talk a little bit more about what we're doing with affordable housing and as it pertains to the BOCC efforts and their commitment to affordable housing. So in 2019, the BOCC supported the Hope Local Housing Trust Fund. And so they have committed to $10 million annually to support housing development. And so we've utilized those funds very, very strategically and been able to leverage funding with our 4% tax credit deals. And so I just want to go back to bonds for just a second, because those are actually bond deals as well that allows us to come in and put $2 or $4 million into a deal or $6 million into a deal, and we leverage maybe $18 or $24 million to create that affordable housing development. And so that's been a tremendous effort. And we've had a lot of great projects that are in the pipeline and coming into fruition as we speak. So I want to say that before the end of the year, we're going to have 2 or 3 projects that's going to have ribbon cuttings as a result of that funding. I also want to talk a little bit about about where we're going in the affordable housing arena. We are looking to put a tremendous amount of effort on preservation. We understand that new construction is really important to add to the housing stock, but we also see preservation as a risk and a threat to what we're already doing. And so we're putting a tremendous amount of effort towards preservation. And you'll see that come out through our acquisition rehab programs, but also through our single family programs as well, where we're doing rehabilitation and demolition rehab for existing homeowners. We're also working on expanding the floor area ratio for our homeowners to better address the needs that are currently existing and many of the challenges that the families are facing. And so oftentimes we have families where they have several different generations living in that household. And so we don't, so we want to serve the entire family. So by doing so, we're looking at opportunities to expand the floor area ratio to serve those families so that they can keep those existing support systems that they have in place. We're also exploring the opportunity and have put some things in place to do ADUs on that same site as well. And we are currently working with a nonprofit organization right now that would allow ADUs to be built on new construction sites to help stabilize that family, but also to help create additional housing units and better utilize our land resources. And so the last thing that I want to mention before I move on into the written reports is the use of our land. Land resources are incredibly important, and so affordable housing has an opportunity that's been supported by the Board of County Commissioners to look at all of the land that we have ownership in, and to utilize that land for affordable housing if it's fitting. And so we certainly have been aggressive in that process, and we appreciate the real estate team and all of the other departments that we interface with to ensure that we're able to utilize this property for the highest and best use in the affordable housing arena. And so if I don't, are there any questions as far any comments before I move into our reports?
I don't see any hands raised online. Does anyone in the boardroom have questions for Ms. Howell? Speak up because I
No,
can't see
Madam Chair.
Yes. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I only have one question, and probably is going more into the reports, Ms. Howell.
Yes.
In the backup of the agenda, there's an item where it satisfies the item A3 that was approved on July 20. It's the satisfaction and lease and the land use termination agreement for the Palm Terrace Apartments, which is a senior community.
Yes.
When we have those Laura expirations, does that removes the requirement for those units to be dedicated for the purpose of which it was originally either built or improved? For example, in this case, it's an assisted living facility for persons 55 years and above. or at 80% of area median income. And so this particular property's Laura expired on May 31st. So when that happens, does that mean we automatically lose those units that are set aside for that specific population? Or traditionally, has it been our experience that they've been maintained, even though they're not required any longer as far as the land use restriction agreement that it has expired?
Right. So a few different things can happen, Commissioner. So please note that these lures are coming to typically either a 15-year or 30-year term end, right? And so back during that time, 15 years or 30 years seemed like an extremely long period of time to put lures into place, but not really because we're here now dealing with this, right? And so, when we look first at, or when we receive a request to end our relationship or to sever that relationship, the first thing that we look at is that if there are other funds that would secure that property for longer periods of time. So oftentimes there are other coinciding funding that may secure that property for a longer period of time. Even if we went in with 15 years, it still may be another 15 or 25 years that's left on lures from other funding in there that will require that property to remain affordable for that for that extended period of time, which means that that property will still serve those existing clients at at um at that income level. Now, sometimes all of the funding in the property is has turned out, right? And the lures has turned out on all of those. And so in a case like that, our response then is to seek out some additional ways to be able to preserve that property. So you hear me talk about preservation of affordable housing. That's one of the ways that we look at trying to do it. And so in a market like we're in right now, as you can imagine, we wouldn't be very successful in this climate, right? Because they can get a lot more for those properties than what we could offer. And so but in, I want to say, normal times when we're not dealing with the exaggerated spikes in the cost of housing, we typically can go in and maybe provide some additional rehab. So the units need recapping typically after 15 years, meaning that they need us or they need some form of revenue to come in so that they can do major rehabs on these units for various different reasons, right? One, because we live on the coast, right? So they're going to need AC units. They're going to need roofs, and typically the money that they set aside to do this is not enough because they when they look at the cost of a roof or replacement of a roof or replacement of ACs, they look at those current costs with some projected increases over time, but not the kind of increases that we're facing right now, right? Nobody could have really projected that. So I say all of that to say that sometimes we lose those units, but not without us trying to keep those units. But oftentimes those units are still under the affordability period, but not under our auspices, but typically under the auspices of either the Housing Finance Authority or the state of Florida Housing Finance Authority.
Very good. Thank you very much for answering that question, because that's where, when we have properties that we've assisted with financing for affordable housing, and the county right now is actually looking at our housing policy that will set aside in certain areas anywhere from 10 to 20% set aside for affordable housing. That is in the process of coming back to the board for approval very soon. And then in areas that are identified as bus emphasis corridors, there will be a requirement for a certain set aside for affordable housing that's higher than what we historically have done. So the good news is it looks like we have the opportunity to get a higher percentage of affordable housing units in any affordable housing project that we didn't necessarily have before. But if to clarify what I think I just heard from you, and for the board's and public's pleasure, another item that's in the backup was the one that was approved also on July 20 regarding the, say, Lansdowne Terrace apartments. That historically has had serving low and very low income. They needed apparently some repairs. There's some construction to be done, and they were um, able to acquire a ship mortgage, a ship-related mortgage, to construct a 160-unit multifamily property at one point in time, and then in order to really make it affordable, there was additional revenues that were coming in from that mortgage, but that established LURA till 2045, as an example. Now, in 2045, when that expires, if they need a roof, we could offer them a financing for that roof, and that could extend that LURA should it expire in 2045. Is that what you're describing, or is that how that works?
Yeah, and and that's correct. So we're in 2022 right now. So that's 23 years later. In 23 years, so many things can happen in policy that would support a number of different efforts, including affordable housing and how property may be used. And so, although there's a real push to put properties in perpetuity, we have to be mindful that the spaces change and the needs of the communities change as well. And so sometimes we have to just consider all of those things in terms of development and spaces that we all exist in, so that we can get the highest and best use even for generations to come.
Right, exactly. And just as a reminder to the board, also on July 20, we had two public hearings that closed, public comment period, and we didn't get any public comment from the board regarding the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. That that report was published and then and now sent to HUD in order to really describe what our processes were and what the impediments were. Now, granted, it was a big report. It was like 300 pages, Ms. Howell, and I had to read all of that. I was like, wow, I learned a lot. And I have a feeling that might have been why we didn't get a whole lot of public comment, because it took that much time to read it. But I encourage the board to go back and take a look at those. Those items are, in backup, and as well as on the board backup for the BOCC meeting on July 20. And we also updated our action plan and subsequent the amendments associated to our action plan on the same date. So, board, there is lots of information on what we're working on and how we're doing it and what our plan looks like. So please take the time, if you can, to go through those documents and see what changes have been updated as we brought it forward. There was an update for multi-year, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 in terms of the fiscal years that we've been doing, but also then address the current plan for 2022, 23. So with that, I will bring it back to Ms. Howell, but I did want to encourage the board. We have seen that there are many of our board members that plan on attending the Florida Housing Coalition Conference at the end of August. It's the 28th through the 31st, I believe. I'll be going and speaking on the Tenant Bill of Rights, but I know Ms. Howell has several sections that she's covering during that conference, and I'm looking forward to seeing our board members there, continue learning and networking and finding different ways that we can bring affordable housing to Hillsborough County. With that, I'll stop. Ms. Howell.
Great, great. So, thank you so much, Commissioner. So, the Commissioner has pretty much gone through my agenda items for for me. Thank you so much. And so, I will move right along to our Affordable Housing Services report here. And so, just in looking at the latest news, well, I will go up to our reports. There's not a lot that has changed with our reports. This year, we are expected to receive almost $11 million, or right at just shy of $11 million in SHIP funding. Remember that 20% is set aside for our developmentally disabled, and we have a lot of other set asides that we have to meet as well. But we're excited about that, and we'll have begun the RFP process for our multifamily, and we'll be utilizing much of that funding for single family as prescribed by the SHIP funding requirements. Also, I wanted to move down and talk a little bit about some of the projects that we have undertaken. And so, in our affordable housing newsletter, we are featuring our Children's Home Network this month. And so, we put $957,000 of CDBG funding into this project. It's a residential foster care facility for abused and neglected children. And so we have, you'll see here the pictures. If you'll look at your report, we put out these newsletters every single month. This particular project will have a tremendous impact on those kids. And so, some of the other projects that we listed out here are the Center for Women on Occupied Rehab, which we put $1.7 million into, the Habitat for Humanity Mason Street project, just a beautiful project that we worked on with Habitat. We're looking to do some additional projects and be a little bit more creative in our efforts as we move forward. Our New Life Village project, which is a one of a kind. There's no project like this in the state. This project provides affordable housing units for foster kids that are in king care, and they create a synergy between our elder generation and our youth that's unlike any that we have throughout the state. So they're disrupting the foster care system as well. And then we have our Habitat for Humanity Sweet Daisy Estates, and that's over in the Temple Terrace area. It is, I want to say, 10 or 12 single family homes with, large, gorgeous canopy trees that's still left in place over in that area. Just a really, the name of the community really doesn't do it justice, but it's certainly a sweet place to be in. It's right off of 75 over back behind. I'm not sure if that's an IHOP or some type of breakfast restaurant back over in there, but it's a gorgeous community. It really is, and I just want to give a shout out to Tina and her team over at Habitat and Ron Spohr for all that they've done and the work that we do throughout this county. And so, if we can take a look here at our calendar, we got a couple of things that's going on in August. We got our August 11th Volunteers of American Ribbon Cutting, and that's at Arbor Place apartment. And in September, be on the lookout for our Catholic Charities ribbon cutting. That's September 15th at 10 a.m. Mercy Oaks apartment. That is coming underway, and that is a 20-unit apartment complex. Extremely proud of that, and we'll be bringing some other projects to you as we move forward. I know that we got some groundbreakings that's coming up in the fall, and we want to invite you over to those so that you can show up and support the efforts that you spend and donate your time. And so I just want to say thank you for all that you do. And right now, that's the end of my report, and I am open for questions or comments.
Thank you, Ms. Howell. Thank you very, very much. Are there questions by the board? If so, speak up because I cannot see the room well enough to be able to tell if anybody's raising their hand.
Yes, Madam Chairman. Thank you much for the very nice and excellent presentation that we've received so far. I just wanted to maybe point our attention, if I can, to the earlier discussion about finding creative ways to address the challenge of, this housing accessibility that has been lingering for decades, to the best of my understanding. My position, my sort of perception is that we cannot use traditional approaches to solve more emerging contemporary challenges related to housing affordability and accessibility to all citizens. And I wanted to kind of probe further into the financial mechanisms for even supporting these new opportunities and, of course, new aspirations that we are having, specifically related to the bond, the access or the utilization of bond financial mechanism to be able to address shortages. I would like to ask if there's any immediate or future plans related to, accessing the bond market to even broaden the base and find more robust financial opportunities to build or to provide more multifamily units. Again, with the understanding that our traditional approach reliance on whatever bond market are in place right now is absolutely insufficient to cater to the needs that we currently have on our hands. So I would like to ask about that. That's the first thing. Second thing is related to recent news that I've seen from HUD. I think in May there was an announcement that about $10.1 billion was approved for affordable housing, and I think just earlier this month, August 1st specifically, HUD announced another $2.8 billion in support to support homeless people. And if I could ask, I'm not sure if I have, I tried to pick from your report to see if there are elements of plans along this line to kind of latch onto this funding stream or funding source, but I don't think I have some sufficient information about that. So if you will maybe shed some more light on how the affordable housing is aligning with this new priority setting, sort of broadening of the financial base from HUD and, of course, from other sources, maybe financial market, private financial market, to really respond in a non-traditional way to this current challenge of housing that we're all trying to wrap our head around. Thank you.
Absolutely. And so I'll take those questions kind of one at a time. And so in terms of the housing bonds, I think it's important to understand that, housing bonds are used in a number of different ways. In Hillsborough County, I want to say 100% of our housing bonds for multifamily are used for families at and below 60% median family income. So in some areas, those housing bonds are used for families up to 140% median family income. And so, which is really different from what we're doing here in Hillsborough County, because really the effort and it's been a tremendous amount of support based on serving those most vulnerable families. And so that in and of itself has been has made some has created some opportunity, if you will, for our lower percentile earning families. And so when you talk about utilizing non-traditional methods for those bond deals, I want to say that is very, very difficult to do because bond deals are regulated through the federal government. So they're pass-through funds that come to the local municipalities. but it's regulated through the federal government, and it is a funding mechanism that has to go and be supported by traditional financial institutions as well. And so typically what those bonds are, so you have your bonds and then you have your tax credits that that kind of coincide together with each other. And the tax credits have to be syndicated, right? Which means that a traditional banking institution has to purchase those, which means that financial deal has to be a solid deal in order for that banking institution to go in and purchase those credits, right? And then the bond deal coincides with that. And so you got one that's traveling with the other. I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk to you about some about some of the nuances and introduce you to our the guy that runs our HFA. And I can tell you that the guy that runs our HFA is one of the leaders in the nation. And so so that you can have a better understanding about the mechanisms of what we're talking about. And in terms of doing creative things, I want to say that we are we're folding in some creative ideas, even with Habitat for Humanity. When we talk about one of our projects was it was a sort of a multifamily deal where they did townhomes, which was different for our Habitat to do townhomes in this area, where we're looking at exploring the use of ADAs on those properties. That's really kind of unheard of as well. But we're also looking at utilizing a type of manufactured housing and 3D printing as well with some of our organizations. So we're looking at some non-traditional methods of creating affordable housing. I have, even with the young woman who spoke, Miss Connie, she brought to us a couple of young men that wanted to do container housing, and so I met with her and met with them and really tried to help to mentor them through a process until to be honest with you, they just not Miss Connie, but the other young men involved were non-responsive. What we're doing is not easy work, but it certainly is possible because people are doing it all over. And so we're committed to working with outside entities to help them get across the line. We want to do this, but we don't have all the solutions and we need partners. In terms of HUD, HUD has made some additional commitments for affordable housing. We saw some increases in our home dollars. They were very restrictive increases that could only be used for tenant-based rental assistance. Some of it can be used for some acquisition rehab for preservation. And so you'll see that come out in our preservation efforts. And we've already gone through procurement, but we don't have any projects to report to you at that time. We're currently in that process and kind of under a cone of silence with that. In terms of the latest announcement from HUD, for the 2 point whatever or almost $3 billion or whatever they said that they were committing, those funds are gonna come through the continuum of care form or through that SNAPS form. And so we're not certain that they'll come directly to the county or not. They may go to THHI or through the state for disbursement through the state through their COC systems. So we're not sure of that. Oftentimes when HUD makes a statement, it's months before we see any real tangible demonstration of those statements. And so I can say to you that at this point in time, we're just not sure how the rollout of those funds will be. So I hope that those responses were helpful.
Yes, they are. Thank you much.
Mr. Adewaba, I appreciate the question. One of the things I'd like to bring to the board's attention in the backup, there are a list of partners and projects that we are addressing. Ms. Howe brought up several that are in the queue that are on our schedule. I will, assuming I can be out around public, I have every intention of attending the ribbon cutting for one of the projects this week on Thursday. That's on our calendar. So if any of you wish to attend that, it should be exciting to see happen. But for the public who may not be able to see the agenda, I'd like to kind of briefly go through the list of things that we are working on so that there's an opportunity for the public to be aware, as well as our community to be aware of the things that we're working on, who our partners are. But right now we have 31 active projects currently being managed by the contracts team. That includes the improvement of public facilities and the renovation of those projects, ranging from education, children education centers, adult special needs centers, daycare centers, homeless family solution centers, and group homes and foster care facilities, in partnership with A Kid's Place, Agency for Community Treatment, or ACTS, the Children's Home Network, which we just saw, McDonald Training Center, Miracles Outreach, New Life Village. If you haven't been to New Life Village, please schedule some time to go tour their facility. It's amazing what they're doing there. Stabilization House, as well as the Sunrise Community Incorporated. Under manufacturing, or I'm sorry, multifamily rehabilitation, there are 94 units in partnership with that we're working, or projects working with Catholic Charities, which is the Mercy Oaks program, the Las Villas that we cut the ribbon a couple of months ago, as well as another project that I believe they're working on. East Tampa Business and Civic Association, Tampa Hillsborough Homeless Initiative, as well as Volunteers of America, which is Thursday's project. That addresses 94 affordable housing units. In the area of multifamily new construction, we've got 89 affordable housing units in the process in partnership with the University Area Community Development Corp, or CDC, Catholic Charities, as well as New Life Village. And then under single family rehabilitation, there are 144 owner-occupied homes in some stage of rehabilitation, in partnership with East Tampa Business and Civic Association, Rebuilding Together Tampa Bay, the Center for Women, through their SHIP program. Habitat for Humanity has 2 active projects going on right now. Self-Reliance is a partner in rehabilitating homes for individuals with disabilities that are looking to stay independent and not end up in a group home or a foster home or a facility, and as well as the Tampa Hillsborough Homeless Initiative. So under single family new construction, we're adding 88 new single family homes in the county in partnership with the Florida Home Partnership. For those of you that are able to attend the Waimama groundbreaking a couple of months ago, that was amazing to see. That is townhome sort of situated. It should be a lot of fun. Magnolia Oaks, I believe, is Magnolia Gardens is what that was called. And then Habitat for Humanity, I know they've got 2 ribbon cuttings in East Tampa sometime in this next 2 weeks or so. But they've been very active in developing additional housing units, single family housing units, and infill. Down payment assistance programs, we partner with the Florida Home Partnership, as well as the Housing Finance Authority, Ms. Howell just mentioned. And our partners, we share those tax credits with the city of Tampa. And then we also work with infrastructure projects with Temple Terrace and Plant City. But to answer your question regarding tax credits and financing, which tend to run hand in hand, Hillsborough County is eligible for 9% tax credit, and then as many 4% as we can afford within the funding that we have available to partner with that. We are also eligible should we have a project that is competitive for an additional 9%, but that's competitive with 4 other large counties. Because we're a very large county, we're eligible to participate in applying for that second 9% tax credit deal. But we've got to compete with other counties. So it's critically important that we work very closely with our Housing Finance Authority to be able to address the opportunities to maximize the use of those 9% credit deals. We have an agreement with the city of Tampa to share that 9% that we have. We have it 1 year, they have the other year. But it's incumbent on each of our governments to bring those projects forward for competitive acquisition in partnership with the Housing Finance Authority for Hillsborough County. But I wanted to make sure that people realize we got a lot going on, and that's not even to talk about those that are out there. We have several. Matter of fact, there is a RFP out right now for a piece of property that we became aware of that previously a church was on. That's out there for response off of Florida Avenue, close to the university area. We've got many projects that are in the queue right now that hopefully will create additional units in our area. And as I mentioned earlier, Hillsborough County does have ADU provisions for being able to add auxiliary dwelling units in Hillsborough County. We did that several years ago, actually. And I believe, and Councilman Goods, you might be able to elaborate on this. City of Tampa has been addressing that issue as well, as given there's been a survey out on it. Can you update us on where the city lies on ADU placements in the urban core?
I mean, they're talking about it, looking at possible zoning or changing zonings to bring forward to us. I don't know when it's going to be. But I'm of a different mindset, folks. We have housing stock. You have dilapidated buildings all over the city and in the county. We have dilapidated homes that are falling down. We have people who've died that stuff are lingering in probate. We have all kind of housing stock. You have a vacancy rate on all these new apartment buildings that are being built by these developers that are empty. So we have to find a way to partner with those people, find a way to get those housing stocks out of probate to get them back into circulation, and also rehab the stock that we have. Everybody is not ready to be a homeowner. We have to realize that, because being a homeowner means you have other bills associated with that, and their pay can't match that when a refrigerator goes out, when a roof needs repair, or other issues that come with being a homeowner. Some people are just not ready for that responsibility. So we have to look at obtaining property, and sometimes people don't want to talk about it, but the county and city have to become builders again. We have to start that process to bring that stock. And I just have a different mindset. We have a lot of different programs. They don't work for everybody, and we're trying the best we can, but we have to go outside the box, look at developing ourselves, look at, again, rehabbing the stock we have, getting those properties with the tax collector. And actually, I made a motion about a month and a half ago in reference to the city getting with the property collector, the tax collector, property appraiser, and the chief judge about probate, about these things that are being tied up with in legality, so we can be able to get those out and be able to help those folks be able to keep those homes, or we obtain those homes to be able to help people better. But when I drive around this city, in this county, you talked about the one church. I see huge churches just dilapidating, falling to pound. I see tons of buildings falling apart that we should be trying to buy with our real estate department to be able to deal with housing. So those are my comments. Those are things I think we need to be doing and aggressively doing to be able to get the housing situation under control. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. One of the things that I did want to bring as a goal back to our board and how we could go about facilitating this is some outreach through our neighborhood empowerment groups. I know the city of Tampa has a neighborhood empowerment team that really works with the neighborhood associations. I would like to do that as well at the county level, is to reach out to those communities to make sure that they're aware that there are SHIP funds available to bring those houses back into compliance and bring back online to be available to rent. There are resources for bringing a home that's currently possibly, not in safe condition, not able to be rented out, not able to be occupied, that a resident or family that's inherited may have access to resources to be able to bring that property back online. And that access is critically important in order to make sure the properties that are not only inside the city of Tampa, but also Temple Terrace, Plant City, as well as in the county, that they become back
Commissioner?
online. Go ahead.
Commissioner, I just want to say to you that we currently have our navigator program, and we have 10 or 11 staff that go out into those neighborhoods, to canvass those neighborhoods, and they share all of the information about our rehab programs, our demo replacement programs, our rental and mortgage assistance programs, childcare programs, and various other programs that's available throughout the county. They canvass those neighborhoods 5 days a week right now. So they've been in Plant City, they've been in East Tampa, canvassing those neighborhoods, in Progress Village, and Mr. Whitty, where are they this week?
This week they're canvassing in Town and Country.
Okay, and now they're canvassing in Town and Country, and so we got calendars that locations that we're targeting each and every week, and they go to different locations, and they're knocking on doors, they're gathering information from our residents, but they're also sharing information with those residents about the various programs that we currently have in place, but certainly including our housing programs. So we already have that underway in terms of making sure that they understand the types of programs that we have to offer. So that's first and foremost for us.
Madam Chair,
You're recognized, Councilman.
I respect what Ms. Howard is saying, but our county is bigger than some states. And there's no way you got a big enough staff to cover this whole county. And that's the thing I told the city. You have to have police, fire, codes for any city employee, any county employee, are out driving all day long. And I've gone down neighborhoods myself. I'm like, how in the world does the garbage man see these houses and they report these houses that are dilapidated, people are in them? So it has to be a full court press on everybody who's an employee within government to be able to call this stuff in, be able to have a brochures in their house to put on someone's door. So I've advocated that with the city. To me, it seems like it falls on deaf ears sometimes, but I'm gonna keep on preaching the song. Everybody's got to be involved in the process to be able to help these folks. So I'm hoping that we can do the same thing with the sheriff's office, police department, whoever, to be able to have brochures, to be able to knock on some doors and be able to give out a pamphlet or two to say, we have these programs, or how can we assist you? You might have Miss Jones, who's 90 years old, passed away, left the house to her 25-year-old grandson. Well, he don't know nothing about anything, really. No one's gonna give him a loan to redo a house. And we talk about money we have, but some of the criteria we have is so stringent, people can't get the money. Well, you have all these federal state guidelines, you can't get the money. So some money has to be put aside in general fund ARPA so people can be able to get these dollars to fix their places up or be able to get someplace without having stringent criteria attached to the process. And that's the process you have with SHIP and all these other programs, state and federal. The guidelines are so stringent, people cannot get the money. So that's all I'm
Yes,
saying.
sir.
Again, I respect what you're saying, Ms. Howard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just want everybody to know that we're certainly doing our part in supporting this, and we hear you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is
Yeah.
Commissioner Myers. I'd just like to
Commissioner
add a
Myers,
comment
recognized.
to what Ms. Howard has said. As our staff is out there, like this week, they're in Town and Country, if they see houses and buildings that are boarded up, maybe they can get the name, the address and all, and they can begin inventory on that, of whom they can speak with, and maybe the county can purchase that piece of property. So I just want to add that to the list of what our staff is already doing. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Commissioner.
So with that, we are on future business items. Are there any requests by the board for consideration of future either presentations or issues you'd like to make sure we bring to your attention at the next board meeting, which is scheduled for September 12th? I'm not hearing any. So with that, I will, is there other comments? Call the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for being here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.